Nicola Sturgeon is pushing for a second referendum on Scotland leaving the UK, but could her bid for independence be derailed if all Scots are allowed to vote? Nicola Sturgeon and the SNP have been heckling Westminster for a second referendum, but their hopes of independence could be thwarted if all Scots are allowed a say in Scotland's future. According to the latest news, Scots who live outside of Scotland may be given a say in a second referendum, as cabinet ministers push Prime Minister Boris Johnson to take a tougher stance on the SNP's independence campaign. Mr. Johnson is allegedly drawing up plans to allow around 800,000 Scots living in England to be given the chance to vote in a second Scottish referendum, together with around 50,000 Scots living in Wales. Cabinet ministers are said to be pushing the PM to stand up to Scotland's First Minister by giving all Scots, no matter where they currently live in the UK, the right to vote in a second independence referendum. It is thought such a move could derail Ms. Sturgeon's plans, as many Scots living outside of Scotland are expected to vote in favour of retaining membership of the UK. Ms. Sturgeon secured a huge majority in the May elections on a pro-Leave campaign and has promised a second referendum for the Scottish people before the end of 2023. Ms. Sturgeon's party, the SNP, secured 64 seats at Holyrood, with the Scottish Conservatives trailing behind, coming second with just 31 seats. Despite the chaos of the pandemic, independence appears to be high on Ms. Sturgeon's agenda. She is expected to start calling for another referendum as early as the autumn, but the independence campaign could face tougher opposition from within Scotland than previously anticipated. Jamie Blacklet, an author and leader of the All for Unity party, told GB News that many parts of Scotland were anti-independence and would be unhappy if they were forced to leave the United Kingdom. Mr. Blacklet said certain regions within Scotland would prefer to stay British rather than be governed by an independent Scottish government. He said, "Scotland is itself a union of former autonomous principalities and kingdoms, and if you say, well look, do you all really want to be part of this new Scotland? Or do you want to continue to be part of the United Kingdom?" Already Shetland and Orkney have been starting to make noises in that direction, staying within the union, and I suspect that the south of Scotland and northeast Scotland would vote the same. He later added, "If you look at the distribution of Leave voters against Remain voters in Scotland, there's only really in Glasgow and Dundee, which also is where a large section of the population live, where you get a large amount of support for separation. Where I live down in Dumfries and Galloway, you get time and time again over 60% or around 60% who vote to stay British." Mr. Blacklet backed the proposal to give all Scots the right to vote, even those currently living in England. When in air Follerin Iman from GB News asked Mr. Blacklet, "Aren't you in danger of gerrymandering the vote instead of winning on the merit of your arguments?" he replied, "It is a bit rich of the SNP to argue about gerrymandering the vote. They are the ones have succeeded in lowering the age of voting to 16. Because it's their perception that young people are more likely to vote for separation because they do not perhaps fully understand what it might entail and have less of a stake in the economy than their parents or grandparents," he added. The SNP have also changed the rules so that you no longer need a fixed abode to vote. They are also very keen to allow a vote to anybody who just happens to be resident in Scotland, whereas my own children who grew up in Scotland, consider themselves to be Scots, would not have a vote, so think the government's argument is quite weak.